In Sekondi, a small coastal city in Ghana, Amma grew up thinking she had the perfect family. She was the eldest daughter, the one who always helped her mother Esi in the kitchen, carried her little siblings on her back, and joined her father on evening walks by the beach. Their home was always full of laughter, cousins visiting, aunties telling stories, and the smell of fresh fish soup drifting through the air. Amma felt safe, loved, and sure that nothing could break them apart. But as she grew older, little things began to change. At first, it was so small she thought she was imagining it, her mother starting conversations with her but ending them quickly, or choosing to share news with her younger siblings instead. Sometimes Amma would come home from school excited to share something, only to find her mother busy laughing with the others, barely noticing her. It wasn't the same warm hug she used to get. She told herself maybe it was just stress, maybe her mother was tired. But the changes kept coming, so slow yet so steady that Amma didn't even realize a distance was forming. Family dinners no longer felt as cheerful. She noticed her mother looking at her differently, as if she was no longer the little girl who could do no wrong. Amma tried harder, helping more, smiling more, keeping quiet when she wanted to speak. Deep down, she hoped things would go back to how they were. But something told her they never would. It all started with something so small. Amma almost laughed about it at first. One Saturday afternoon, she sat with her mother, Esi, in the kitchen. The smell of banku and tilapia filled the air as they talked about Amma's plans after university. Amma's eyes lit up as she explained her dream, starting her own interior design business. She wanted to create beautiful spaces that told stories, spaces people would feel at home in. But Esi's face fell. Interior design? That's not a real career, Amma. You should be a lawyer or maybe a banker. Something respectable, she said, her voice sharp. Amma tried to explain that she'd thought about it carefully, that it was her passion, but her mother waved her off like she was a child. You're making a mistake. You need to think about the family's image. Amma felt the sting, but she thought the disagreement would pass. She didn't know it was the start of something much deeper. At the next family gathering, she noticed it. Her mother laughed and joked with her younger siblings, piling their plates with food, asking about their school projects, their friends, their dreams. When Amma spoke, Esi would nod politely, then quickly turn to someone else. It was as if she was fading into the background of her own family. It happened again at another gathering, this time even more obvious. Her siblings sat beside their mother, their plates full, while Amma was seated at the far end of the table, talking mostly to her cousins. No one said it out loud, but Amma could feel it. Her mother was choosing them over her. Home, it was the same story. Little compliments that used to be hers. You look beautiful today, or I'm proud of you, were now given to her siblings. If Amma achieved something, it was barely mentioned. But if her younger brother got a small award, Esi would tell the whole family group chat. Amma tried to brush it off. Maybe she was being too sensitive. Maybe her mother was just in a mood. But deep down she felt the first real cut in the bond they shared. It wasn't just about a career choice anymore. It was as if, in her mother's eyes, Amma had stepped off the path she was supposed to walk, and now she was being quietly punished for it. And once a cut is made, Amma was beginning to realize it doesn't always heal, sometimes it grows. Amma hadn't been home for a while. Work had kept her busy. And honestly, the tension with her mother made it easier to stay away. But one Sunday she decided to visit. She brought fresh pastries from her favorite bakery in Accra, thinking maybe they could share a quiet afternoon together. When she walked into the living room, the familiar scent of lavender polish hit her. The furniture was in the same place, the curtains were the same, but something on the wall caught her eye. The big framed family portrait, the one they had taken 2 years ago, had changed. She stepped closer, her heart suddenly heavy. There they were, her father, her mother, her 2 younger siblings, and Abina, her cousin, smiling brightly in the exact spot where Amma used to stand. For a moment Amma just stared. She blinked, thinking maybe it was a trick of her eyes. Maybe she was mixing up memories. But no, that was her spot. That was her dress. That was the family portrait where she had once been laughing between her father and her little sister. Only now, it was as if she had never been there at all. Her throat tightened. When did this change? She asked, her voice careful. I didn't even look up from peeling plantains in the kitchen. Oh, a while ago. Abina had a nice picture, so I replaced it. It looks better this way. Amma felt her chest ache. Better without her. She wanted to ask why, to demand an explanation, but the words felt heavy in her mouth. Instead, she swallowed hard, forcing a small nod as if it didn't matter. The rest of the visit felt strange. Everywhere she looked, the house was filled with small signs that her place was shrinking, framed photos on the shelves where she was no longer in the shot, albums with pages missing, her old drawings gone from the walls. She left that afternoon with the pastries still in her bag, untouched. Walking to her car, the sea breeze from Secondi's coast hit her face, but it didn't feel fresh or freeing, felt cold. She realized something unspoken had happened, something more than a disagreement. Her mother wasn't just upset with her. She was erasing her. Quietly, piece by piece. Until maybe one day, there would be no proof Amma had ever belonged. The next time Amma visited, she told herself she wouldn't look too closely at the walls. She didn't want to feel that ache again, but it was impossible not to notice. The photo of her at age 10, holding her baby brother on his first birthday, gone. The framed picture of her in her school uniform on graduation day, replaced with one of her sisters smiling at the same spot in the living room. Even the little collage of vacation snapshots that used to show her laughing on the beach had been rearranged so only her siblings and cousins remained. It was like walking through a stranger's home. Amma's chest tightened with every step. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone, her mother, had gone through the trouble of taking her out of the story. Finally, she couldn't hold it in. "Ma," she said, standing in the kitchen doorway, "why are you removing all my pictures?" I didn't look up from stirring the soup. "I'm not removing them," she said lightly. "I'm just making the walls look nicer. A better family image. A better image without me." Amma's voice cracked, though she tried to hold it steady. I shrugged. "Don't be dramatic, Amma. Just photos." "You're overthinking." Amma felt the words cut deep. Just photos. They were her childhood, her place in this family, her proof that she belonged here. She wanted to scream to tell her mother that this was more than decoration, but instead she just stood there, frozen. Something broke inside her that day. She realized her mother wasn't going to admit it or explain. This quiet erasure wasn't an accident, it was a choice. And knowing that, feeling it settle heavy in her heart, hurt in a way words couldn't touch. That night, when Amma drove back to Accra, the road felt longer than usual. The radio played softly, but she didn't hear it. All she could see were the empty spaces where her face used to be. All she could hear was her mother's voice, dismissing it as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. And the pain of it clung to her like salt from the sea, no matter how far she drove. Leaving Secondi wasn't just a decision for Amma. It was survival. She packed her clothes, her sketchbooks, and a few personal photos she managed to save before they disappeared from the walls. She didn't tell anyone exactly when she was leaving. One quiet Monday morning, she simply loaded her things into a bus to Accra and didn't look back. The city was loud, fast, and full of possibility. At first, the noise was a welcome distraction. Amma threw herself into work, taking small interior design jobs, painting tiny cafes, arranging cozy ghost houses, helping friends redecorate their apartments. Word spread about her eye for detail and her way of making any space feel alive. Soon, she had clients calling from every corner of the city. She rented her own studio, hired a small team, and built the business she had once dreamed about in that kitchen conversation with her mother. From the outside, her life looked perfect. She posted beautiful before and after photos online, attended design exhibitions, and traveled to different parts of Ghana for projects. People admired her independence. But inside, there was a quiet, aching space she never showed anyone. She didn't call home. She didn't visit. Whenever her phone buzzed with a Secondi number, she let it ring. Birthdays, Christmas, Easter. She stayed in Accra, convincing herself it was better this way. But sometimes, late at night, she would find herself scrolling through old photos on her laptop, lingering on the ones where her family was still whole. She'd remember the sound of her father's laugh, the smell of her mother's cooking, the feeling of belonging. No matter how much success she built, that missing piece was still there. It wasn't just that her photos were gone from the walls. It was that she had been erased from the heart of the only place she had once called home. Amma had moved away, but the wound had moved with her. It had been 5 years since Amma last stepped foot in Sekondi. 5 years since she had heard her mother's voice in person. She had built a new life in Accra, one where she chose who and what to let in. She thought she had buried the past deep enough. Then one Thursday morning, as she sifted through her mail, she found an envelope that made her hands pause. It was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with gold wax. Her name, Amma Mensah, was written in bold, careful handwriting. She knew instantly it wasn't a bill or a business letter. Inside was a formal card, the kind you'd expect for a wedding or gala. The Mensah family requests the honor of your presence at the grand family reunion. Date: August 14th. Venue: Sekondi Community Hall. Dress: traditional. Her eyes stopped on the line just below. Your presence is requested. She read it twice. Requested. After 5 years of silence, after being erased from their home, now her presence was wanted. The words felt strange in her mouth, like a bitter fruit. Her first instinct was to crumple the card and toss it in the bin. She imagined her mother smiling and hugging everyone, pretending nothing had happened. She didn't owe them anything. But that night she couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the invitation on her desk. Something inside her stirred, not exactly forgiveness, but a pull. A need to see with her own eyes what her family had become. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the small part of her that still wanted answers. By morning, she had made her decision. She would go. Not quietly, not as the girl they erased, but as the woman she had become. She began planning her outfit, something bold, something they couldn't ignore. If she was going back to Sekondi, she wasn't going to hide. The day of the reunion, Sekondi's air was warm and heavy with the smell of the sea. Amma stepped out of the car slowly, the afternoon sun catching every golden thread of her Kent gown. It was a rich mix of deep emerald and bright gold, wrapped perfectly around her tall frame. Her head was held high, her hair wrapped in a matching gelly that made her look like royalty. In her left hand, she carried a slim leather folder, the kind you'd expect to see in a lawyer's office, not at a family party. She kept it close to her side, her fingers pressing into it like it carried something precious or dangerous. The reunion hall was buzzing. Strings of colorful cloth hung from the ceiling, the tables covered in patterned tablecloths, plates already piled high with jollof rice and fried plantain. Laughter rose from every corner, music drifted through the speakers. But the moment Amma stepped in, the room shifted. Conversations slowed, heads turned. "Is that Amma?" someone whispered near the door. "She came," another voice gasped. Her cousins stared openly, some with wide smiles, others with tight, cautious eyes. A few aunties nodded at her in that way that meant "we've been watching you from afar." Her younger siblings froze mid-sentence when they saw her, their eyes darting to where their mother stood across the room. Sai's smile faltered for just a moment, but it was enough for Amma to see. Then, as if nothing had happened, her mother turned back to the guests, her laugh just a little too loud. Amma walked in slowly, the click of her heels echoing against the tiled floor. She didn't rush to hug anyone. She didn't shrink into the background. She moved through the hall like she belonged there, because she did. The whispers followed her as she chose a seat near the front. The leather folder stayed on her lap, her hand resting on it gently, as if waiting for the right moment. Today, she wasn't here to blend in. She was here to be seen. The reunion program was moving along. Speeches from uncles, prayers from aunties, laughter over old stories. Amma sat quietly, her hand still resting on the leather folder. She waited. Then the MC announced, "We now invite Amma Mensah to say a few words." A few people clapped politely, others exchanged curious looks. Amma stood, her Kent catching the light, and walked to the front. She didn't take the microphone right away. Instead, she placed the leather folder on the table, unzipped it slowly, and pulled out a slim laptop and a small projector. "I didn't come here to just talk," she said, her voice calm but steady. "I came to show you something." The The lights dimmed, and the first image appeared on the wall. A photo of little Amma, no more than 5 years old, sitting on her father's shoulders, both of them laughing under the coconut trees at the beach. A murmur ran through the room. Slide after slide appeared. Amma in her school uniform holding a trophy, Amma braiding her little sister's hair, Amma standing beside the whole family at Christmas, her arm around her mother. Every picture showed joy, connection, and love. Then came the second set of images. Amma clicked the remote, and side-by-side comparisons appeared. The original family portrait with her in it, and the altered one hanging in her mother's living room, where she had been replaced by cousin Abina. The graduation photo with her cropped out. The vacation collage rearranged so she no longer existed. Gasps filled the room. An uncle shook his head slowly. A cousin covered her mouth. "These are not mistakes," Amma said softly. "These are choices. Choices made to erase me from this family's story." Her voice wavered, but she didn't look away from the crowd. "I want you all to see what I've seen for years. Not because I'm here to shame anyone, but because truth has been buried long enough." The last slide lingered. A picture of the entire family, the real one, untouched. Amma standing proudly in the middle, smiling as if nothing could ever break them apart. When the lights came back on, the room was silent. All eyes turned to ESI. Amma's hand trembled slightly as she held the microphone. The air in the hall felt thick, heavy with the silence after the slideshow. She took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the room before settling on her mother. "There's something you all need to know," she began, her voice soft but carrying. "This wasn't about a disagreement over my career. It wasn't about me moving away. My mother erased me because I look like my father." A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Some people leaned forward. Others shook their heads as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Amma's voice broke as she continued. "My father, he left us when I was young. And my mother never forgave him. Every time she looked at me, she saw his face, his smile, his eyes. I was a reminder of the man who walked away. And instead of facing that pain, she decided to erase me. From her walls, from her photos, from her story." Her words hung in the air, raw and heavy. She swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. "Do you know what it's like to walk into your own home and see yourself replaced? To realize that the person who gave you life wishes she could pretend you were never there?" By now, some guests were crying openly. An aunt reached for a tissue. Uncles shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Amma's younger sister wiped her eyes, looking between Amma and their mother. Amma's voice cracked as Sai's hands were shaking as she stood. Her eyes glistened, and for a long moment she couldn't speak. Then the tears came. "Amma, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how much I was hurting you. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was only destroying you. I let my pain turn me into someone I never wanted to be." The room was quiet except for her sobs. She stepped forward slowly, like she wasn't sure if Amma would let her come closer. "Please, forgive me," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't deserve it, but I'm asking." Amma's throat tightened. She had imagined this moment for years, sometimes with anger, sometimes with longing. And now, standing there, she felt both. She took a deep breath. "I forgive you," she said softly, her eyes wet. "Not because it didn't hurt, but because I don't want to carry it anymore. But I need you to understand. I will protect my peace. I won't let myself be erased again." Sai nodded through her tears. "I understand." They stepped into each other's arms, holding on tightly, their sobs mingling. Around them, relatives wiped their eyes. Amma's siblings came forward, wrapping their arms around them, and soon the whole family was in a circle, holding each other. The music that had paused earlier began to play again, softer this time, almost like it understood. Laughter started to return, and plates of food were passed around. It wasn't perfect and it would take time, but for the first time in years, Amma felt something she thought she had lost forever, the warmth of belonging.